I've always had sort of a drive to step off and try the thing and maybe fail than a greater fear of not having tried it and looking back and wishing I'd done something. And so when I had the opportunity to start a business, I think the fear of never trying was greater than the fear of what it would be to go step out and try. And that's kind of guided my path throughout.
Our guest today is a business executive, entrepreneur, coach, and former educator. He has over 30 years of service in support of business growth, education, and leadership. And he's currently leading a people analytics and data management company called Zeroed In, as well as providing fractional strategic support to a nonprofit that is focused on ensuring access for individuals with disabilities. He certainly is keeping busy. He's implementing processes for scale, business development, and go-to-market strategies, as well as hiring and enabling high-powered teams to help drive success. Welcome to the show, my friend and brother in Christ, Dave Seligsohn.
Thanks so much, Mike. It's awesome to be here.
Yes, sir. Hey, man, we've been talking about doing this for a while. I'm super excited. I actually know why it happened this month. Do I know why it happened in May?
Do tell. Yeah, do tell. I'm at the edge of my seat.
The city of brotherly love has been getting a lot of love on the show lately, actually. So it's no surprise you're here. My childhood friend, John Beebe, was recently on the show. He now lives in the Philly area. Yesterday, I interviewed Justin Shank. He lives in Philly. My daughter is near Philly now. So I know you live in Texas at the moment. You've been there for years, but I know you are a Philly boy at heart, Philly born and representing. So that's why it's happening at this point. There's a lot of that city of brotherly love happening on the show right now.
Yeah, living outside of Dallas is not the easiest thing for a guy whose heart is still in Philly. It's a good place to be, but yeah, from a sports perspective, Philly all the way. So I appreciate that. It seems like a recurring theme for you, so that's good.
Yeah, and I don't know how you talk about. It's hard to be a Philly fan in that city, but what about the heat? And you got if you guys are listening and not watching, Dave comes to us with this nicely groomed, but it's about 8 inches long beard that I can't imagine in the Texas heat is very comfortable. How do you pull that off?
Well, I do got nothing up top, right? So it balances. so the heat just escapes up the top instead of down below. Although I do talk to my wife quite often about the potential of braiding this bad boy, so it's not all, it's not so long, not so all over the place. But
what's kind of funny is if I just met you, you kind of got a little bit of the tough guy thing going on with the long beard. You look, but at heart, I know you are. I don't want to say a softie in that regard, but you have a huge heart, passion. I know that you lead in Christ, and you got a lot of cool stuff, which we're going to talk about. So it's just another reminder not to judge a book by the cover, right? So you have such a cool story, and I'm not surprised that you thought about the not having hair on top is letting the heat come out. You probably calculated it, knowing how much you calculate your business success and your moves in business. But here's what I'd like to do, because there's going to be some people tuning in that maybe haven't heard your story. And I know we network together and we're in our mastermind group together. Shout out to our friends in Convene. But I still want to know a little bit more of your entrepreneurial story. So tell us, you have a couple decades of business leadership and an impressive resume that I just mentioned at the top of the show. You're leading Zeroed In as the executive vice president. So walk us through your business trajectory. Did you climb that corporate ladder before becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, there's never been a corporate ladder. I've never seen a corporate ladder. So
okay.
I started off as an educator, as a teacher and a principal. And the funny thing is, I was a teacher for 6 years, got my master's degree, go Hokies, Virginia Tech, and all of a sudden was offered the job of a principal. And so I was 28 years old, Fairfax County, Virginia, and they gave me the job of a principal. And that is crazy.
Wow.
If you know anything about Fairfax County, biggest district, one of the most high performing, the nation looks at Fairfax County. It's in and around DC, international, large, huge. It kind of set the tone for education nationally.
Wow.
And here I am, 28 years old.
In the heart of it.
In the heart of it. I walked in, and I think they thought I was like teacher of the year or some first year teacher. And here I am, principal in the principal's meeting. So I did that for 9 years as a principal in Fairfax County. And then I moved to Texas in Plano, Texas, as a principal. And I had an opportunity to start my own business. And so I did. And I started doing some business coaching, helping people write business plans. And I got into what I like to call soft turnaround work. In other words, why isn't my business achieving what I thought? And so I could come in and help them figure out what was not working and why, and implement plans to turn that thing around. And so I was very successful in that. And that led to me finding my first actual job for somebody else outside of education, which was my previous company called Blue Water. And when I started at Blue Water, there were two guys, two brothers. I was the third. We ended up, when I left after 11 years, it was 120 people and a $20 million business. And we grew that thing, but there's never really been a corporate ladder. There's just been trying things.
So you got, I mean, but leading a school though, as a principal is obviously not an easy task for anybody. And so you learned a lot of, I'm sure, leadership there. Were you a student of that? I mean, were you taking a lot of like leaders, either reading books or diving into leading a team, that kind of thing that you feel maybe later helped you out with your success in business?
I don't think I was smart enough at 28 to think about that, Mike.
Yeah.
But what I did recognize was that I was so far over my head in that job. So it was a lot more listening. It was collaborating with other principals that I got close to. And it was always thinking about, at the end of the day, we're all there for one thing. We're all there for the kids. And so what's in the families and the students' best interest? And as long as I kept those things out front, then I was able to make good decisions for the school and the district overall.
Did you have any entrepreneurial influence in your family, or was there anything you watched or saw that kind of sparked your interest in getting into leading a business? I mean, that obviously has been clearly something you've done for a long time now.
Look, man, I'm the only person in my entire family to ever even go to college.
Wow.
So there's no entrepreneurial spirit. I came from a pretty broken home. I didn't have many mentors or influences. All I can tell you is that I've always had sort of a drive to step off and try the thing and maybe fail than a greater fear of not having tried it and looking back and wishing I'd done something. And so when I had the opportunity to start a business, I think the fear of never trying was greater than the fear of what it would be to go step out and try. And that's kind of guided my path throughout.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well said. Hey guys, if you're tuning in right now, did you hear that? This guy's leading at a high sought after school as a principal in a family, coming from a family where people don't have college education before him. That didn't stop him from going and trying. And then I love what you just said, Dave, in that it would be worse to not try and later on go through life and kind of suffer through the feeling of, I don't know if I think I could have been successful, but I'll never know, opposed to going, trying, potentially failing, and at least knowing, okay, well, that didn't work out. What did I learn? How can I apply it to my next move and keep going? And I actually was scoping you out a little bit on LinkedIn just to kind of see if I could put the puzzle pieces together prior to this conversation of your trajectory, because you did have that. It's been over multiple decades, probably 25 years of seeing you at different high-level positions. And I think that's incredible. And if you want to share a little bit about your kind of the family dynamics that you either learned from that helped you or learned from and said, I don't want to do that. I'd love to hear a little bit of how that shaped you into the man that you are today.
Yeah, it's a good question, and an unexpected one. I think I learned how not to be for the majority of my formative years. I didn't have faith in my life for the majority of my formative years. I had a broken family. I was an only child. I grew up in a Jewish home, but I didn't have parents that really followed that faith, and I really grew up with no faith. And so all I can say is why I didn't fall into gangs or drugs or any of those things is God's grace, even when I didn't even know He was around and cared. Looking back on it, there's a Tim Timmons song called "Fighting for You." It's a pretty amazing song, and when I hear that song, it sort of does choke me up a little bit because He was fighting for me even when I didn't know it. And so that's sort of driven my life. Is I don't know what I want to be, but I know what I don't want to be. And the only way I'm going to figure out what I do want to be is to go try things, I guess, and to not repeat things that I've experienced already. So every new thing for me is a place that I haven't been before, and that's kind of
Right.
driven my decision making and my choices.
Yeah, I think that's, again, beautiful for anybody to hear. Just as a refresher, a lot of who tunes into this show are early stage entrepreneurs. They're either struggling or starting to really get off the ground. They're looking to scale their business. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and you've done that over and over again. But it's also about the idea of helping people level up. So that's really the core of the show, is conversations about leveling up, which you just talked about how you did that, and really to help people inspire to unlock their dreams. I mean, everybody has a dream at some point, and I feel like society, or kind of what we have around us, whether it's in school, and I'm not trying to shoot down the school system. I mean, there's great things that happen in the school system, but there's also things that kind of create a little bit more of the employee mindset and not the entrepreneurial mindset, I feel. And there's studies that show that. And so this show is really to inspire people to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. And we do it through your real stories. The guests that come on the show share things like you just did, and it's designed to help people level up. So I appreciate you sharing that. It's not always easy to go back to times that maybe weren't something we like to run through our head, press the play button in our brain. So appreciate you going back there to help us out. Let's talk about some of the essentials now that you've created over and over again for effective growth strategies, and you empower teams to achieve long-term success. So what are those essentials that you feel go into it?
Yeah, for me, the first thing is an accurate understanding of what's happening, and so it takes time and intention and a specific methodology to dive into the details of a business or an opportunity, so that you can kind of break the pieces apart and understand them. For me, the metaphor that's in my head, the visual that I have in my head, is I think of like one of those Jenga towers
Mm-hmm.
is the business or the opportunity, and I got to knock it over, and I take each piece and I understand it, and then I put it back together in the way that makes sense, or that I could see achieving whatever the goal happens to be. And that's how I
Mm-hmm.
make sense of things. So I need to evaluate the people, the culture, the process, the clients, the customers, the impact, all the different facets, and then I can begin to find where those gaps are, where those opportunities are for growth. At the same time, to be even more specific, there are a few key things that I think are inherent in every business. Defining and understanding and documenting what that culture is going to be. In other words, what do you stand for? What's your mission? What are you trying to achieve? And holding that against all of your decision making, kind of bouncing it off of that and making sure it fits.
Right.
Making sure that you have right processes in place, and not focusing on what you want to sell or what you want to do, but what the other people, what your customers or clients need. That's another big thing. And then the last thing, and maybe the most important, is a lot of entrepreneurs think they have to do it themselves. And I'm a huge proponent and experienced of a success of finding partners and doing things with
Mm-hmm.
other people who either fit and can join in with your mission, and can help enhance and extend it, or people who you might even be competing with, but that the two of you can go create a bigger pie. Those are things that I found that partnerships are key to business growth, especially in early stage. Doing it alone and isolated is really difficult to do. I know, I've tried it.
Yeah. Really good. I love what you said right at the top of that, is breaking it down like the Jenga tower piece by piece. I'm thinking when you started talking about that, I was thinking about on the personal level, people can really do this too. Is we may have things that our Jenga tower was built based on kind of our environment we were in. And there's times we need to break those barriers down and build them back up. I kind of feel like I've done that in different relationships I've been in, things I've, whether you learn growing up in your household, that you have to kind of eventually say, you know what, I think, I respect my family, but I think there's a couple different things we want to add into our family. Now you have your family with your children and everything, and you kind of start to build Dave's version of it. And in business, same thing. Every business got to get to those core elements. And I love what you talked about, is partnering up with people, because at the end of the day, businesses are led by people. It's decisions made by people, and it's the core environment of the people there that are really going to help it strive and be successful. So talk about the essentials of kind of building the strategy behind business and being successful. And what about a little bit more of how do I want to say it? The environment at a business, right? So when we're talking about people on teams, leadership, that whole dynamic. building a corporate environment. I don't like the word corporate even, but like a company culture. Let's call it that. Talk about some of the key facets that go into a great company culture.
So I used to think that culture was pretty frou-frou, man. Like it was, go take your skirt off. You don't need a culture. Get the work done. Roll up your sleeves. Get after it. That's how you
Right.
grow a business. And I now, with time and wisdom and experience, I think culture might be the single most important thing that you can build and develop in a business. And I've actually created a very specific methodology, and have not only done so at my own entities, but in other for other people that I've coached or advised, helped them to develop a right culture for the business. And you do that by thinking about what are the things that we want to hold on to that really work well. What are the things that sometimes hold us back and that create obstacles that we do? What do our customers and clients say about us? And ultimately, what are some of the key phrases or the things that kind of create our personality for our business? For example, at a previous spot, we had a shark as a mascot, and we used to say our clients are fish, not food, off of the Finding Nemo thing. But that kind of fun saying that we would say kind of also lends itself to an approach to customers. And so just thinking about what the right terminology is and what the right mindset is. What are the things that extend our business and that our clients celebrate versus what are the things that cause us issues? And so you focus on the positive things and you develop a cultural model from that, a series of behaviors and keynotes or key phrases that exemplify those behaviors. And then you think about how we're going to implement that. So just having it is one thing. Implementing it is all another thing. So what does it look like? How do you embed that in the hiring process? How do you embed that in the performance appraisal process? When people walk into your office, what do they see and feel that helps point them to this culture that you want to promote?
Mm-hmm. I have a background. I started off in sales, and I had many different jobs before I got into sales. But on the timeline, right around 20 or so, I started to get into sales. Worked for a local music store. There's a furniture company that I was working for before that I kind of got to see the sales process, but I was on the customer service side of it. And then I started off working in high ticket sales in my mid 20s, and then eventually got into a store management position. So I got to see kind of the corporate ladder. I was climbing it a little bit. I went from a sales rep to the store manager. I was in a bunch of kind of company courses that they would give you to help you in your leadership journey. And they didn't just let anybody in those. Like they'd pick 20 people maybe in a whole state where they want them to be like the future leaders kind of thing. And I was in a bunch of those programs, and I got to see things I really liked about company culture. And there was things that I noticed didn't always work. And you and I are big sports guys, so I'm going to use another sports analogy on the show for the 1,000th time here. But I think about how in sports, a lot of times people can be an MVP level player, but then they retire. They're much older, they retire, and then they kind of get into coaching. It doesn't make them a good coach. There's different qualities. Like you can play the game at a high level, but that doesn't make you a great coach. And I've seen that a lot in business. And then also it always like hit a wrong nerve with me when a company would hire someone from an outside company that had like no sales experience, but they'd be in a leadership role. For example, I remember working for a company and someone came in from a clothing retail company and they were now selling mattresses, but they didn't have any sales experience other than selling retail clothing. and so they had such a disconnect. They didn't know the process that we had to do at a high level to be successful. And they're kind of our coach. And we all knew on the team, like, they don't even know how to do it. So talk about that dynamic. What goes into, we're talking about the Jenga of building a solid business. What about the Jenga blocks of building a solid leader?
Yeah. So first, from very early on, back as a principal in my education days, my mark to me, my benchmark as a successful principal was developing other leaders and other principals. Like that to me was the coolest thing. So how do you give opportunities to the people that you work with and allow them to step up and in or to not, right? But you allow them to kind of choose the path that they want to take. And then through their performance and their commitment and their convictions, you kind of get to see if they've got the chops at this point in their lives for it. So I'm a firm believer in the people and giving them the opportunities to step up and in and to challenge themselves and to give them opportunities for that. So I think the greatest mark of a leader is not their own ability to step up the ladder, but it's in their own ability to promote others, and to get others to accelerate their own course, their own behaviors, their own opportunities. So I think that's a big deal. And there's two pieces in that. We need to have a solid internal foundation. And for me, that comes from experience, and it also comes from family, but more than anything, it comes from faith. And it comes from feeling like I have a solid foundation of hope and trust and confidence in life in general, and in the path that I take. Again, lived out through my faith in Christ. And then secondly, once you have a solid internal foundation, you have to have an outward focus. Like it's not good enough just to have that and keep it for myself. I have to turn that outward and look outward to think about how can I look at those around me and care and love them enough so that I can find the opportunities for them to help them achieve and to help them do it in the right way. So, I think when your benchmark is to watch the people around you grow and succeed, and that's how you, like, even to grow beyond what you are and to be promoted and to take higher positions, like there's never jealousy in that. Like, to me, that's a huge win and a reason to be thankful. And so I think it's that approach that really helps with building teams. And it's understanding the people, as we talked about, their strengths, their needs, their fears, giving them freedom to be able to fail and not worry about the loss of their job because they failed. That said, fail in the same way 3 times in a row, we might have an issue. But, people should have the freedom to fail and to learn from it, because I certainly have in my life. And in that, the team members will, what I like to call, they'll float. Like they float to the surface. The role that they're supposed to have, they step into because that's what they were designed to do, or that's where they have the capability or the potential for.
Yeah, I love that. It's bringing everybody else up too. It's not just I'm at the front and everybody's underneath me and we're going to kind of keep them there. It's how do I, when I'm not in this position or I go to a different position or whatever, how do we also bring up the leaders of tomorrow right behind us? And it's not there's a saying, a handout versus a hand up kind of thing. It's like, it's bringing them up with you, right? It's not just, silver spoon in the next generation. Oh, we're successful. So now here, you take the keys of the car. That's like a father and their child. The father's super successful. It's like, teach them how to also fish.
Yeah. And I think it's like traditionally we think of it as a pyramid trying to get to the top. For me, it's inverted, right? For me, it's like I'm at the bottom trying to create a foundation for other people to grow and succeed. And that to me is what's the mark of someone who's successful. And that you don't have to be a business leader to help other people succeed and achieve their potential. But if you are a business leader or an entrepreneur who's growing a business, you have a unique position in order to do that.
Absolutely. Awesome, brother. We're going to take a quick 2-minute timeout, give our sponsor some love. We'll be right back with Dave Seligsohn in 2 minutes. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you, and that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight, and Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business. All right, we're back in action with Dave Seligsohn. And remember, you can connect with him on social media. His LinkedIn is clickable in the show notes, and that's the best place to find him. Also, the company we mentioned, Zeroed In, we'll have them listed too. But the best way to connect with Dave is right there on LinkedIn. So before the break, Dave, you're defining leadership, which I thought was really cool, and talking about how you lead, and it's kind of the reverse pyramid situation, which is awesome. Something that gets talked a lot about, and we're both followers of Christ, and a lot of times this comes up in our Convene group, which is great, is servant leadership. And there's going to be a lot of people tuning in that they may be followers of Christ and they may not be, but they've heard the term servant leadership. I'd love you to define it, like what that means to you, because I know that you do that in your household and also in the different organizations that you're involved with. So what does that mean to you to be a great servant leader?
So for me, being a servant means putting other needs before your own. And so in doing that, you are sacrificing or putting your priorities second and lifting somebody else's needs above your own. And so there's a sacrifice in that. And so in the process of sacrificing your part of yourself for someone else, like that's love, like that's loving them. And I don't mean love like the feely, hearts and, Valentine's Day love, but I mean like loving someone where kind of agape, well, even more than compassion, but like agape, unconditional, putting someone else's needs before your own love, where you promote others before yourself. And so when you talk about servant leadership, it's about understanding the people that you work with and the business opportunities and your customers and your clients and your partners and the community in general, thinking about their needs and then promoting those needs, even if it means sacrificing some of the things that you would enjoy so that you can put them in the right positions, that you can give them the right opportunities so that they have the right time or attention or whatever it is that they need. And so that loving as a verb, not as a feel, but as a verb, to me is critical in servant leadership. And so we can all ask, like, I don't have to like you, Mike, but I can be loving towards you. In other words, I can put your needs first, even if you're not a guy that I really appreciate, which isn't the case, by the way, but just saying. And so I think it's that mindset of how can I be loving towards others in all the things that I do, which takes the self-centeredness away and the focus away from myself and puts it into what's best for others.
Right. Well said, man. I'm glad that I asked that question. Actually didn't have that prepared, but it just it was sitting there, right? And it's like, oh man, like we're leading right there. So we talked about company culture. We talked about servant leadership. And I feel like the other component of it, and I mentioned it a couple of times, is our Mastermind Group Convene that we're in. Talk about your thoughts on the importance of Mastermind Groups for entrepreneurs and business leaders. Like, to me, that's a huge part of this.
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier that I think partnerships are huge. Nobody should do anything in isolation. And I also think that there's a danger and a lack of accountability when you do things in isolation, because you can begin to head down a path that might not be healthy or might not be your right path and not recognize that because you're so buried in the day-to-day. And so working with others, getting feedback from others, hearing other struggles and stories, and also getting advice from people who maybe have gone before you or have experienced things that you're just experiencing now for the first time. Those things are huge. Convene for me more than anything is an opportunity to give. Like when people ask me why I'm part of Convene, one of the biggest reasons is it's an opportunity for me. Like, why did I go through all the crap, all the failures, all the missteps, all the trips and everything else that I when I fell down and everything else? If not to help somebody else avoid some of those pitfalls and to be encouraging. And so that's a big part of that. And I think when you have a community of business leaders who come together all with the intent of serving, again, that loving, serving one another to help grow each other's opportunities and each other's insights and wisdom, that's a pretty powerful thing. Isolation working by yourself only can last so long. I think it's got an expiration date.
I can personally, tell you that I've been in that experience. I started off as a solopreneur. I do have a great team that works with me now, but in the beginning, it was me, myself, and I did a lot of networking, and networking is great, but it's different than being in a mastermind group where you're with your brothers and sisters who are helping level you up, and they're kind of all grabbing your arms, pulling you up, and then tomorrow, now you're the person pulling the next guy or gal up, right? And I just want to give you a compliment, right? I know you don't need the pat on the back, but I want to say, like, when we're in our group, I notice that you're always actively listening, which is super important. It shows that you care. And then when we do our opportunity challenges, and if you're tuning in and you're not sure how that works, we each get an opportunity in our group to present. And this is something that happens, I think, in a lot of mastermind groups, but present maybe an opportunity or challenge, something that's going on in our business that it's really like a 10 out of 10 importance level that we need to work through. And then the group collectively works on it, like a bunch of construction workers. We all are on the same project for a moment. And Dave, you do an awesome job at listening. And then you send an email with a bunch of really thoughtful, itemized things for me to think about and take action on and truly help. And it's not like you're just doing it to get it out of the way so you can go on to the next thing. It's super thoughtful, and it says a lot about your character. And I just wanted to be able to thank you. And I'm going to thank you in front of everybody.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. Can you say that again? No, I'm just kidding.
By the way, Dave's also a wise ass too once in a while. So
I mean, I'm from Philly, so that comes with the territory. You haven't asked me any wise ass questions yet, so that part of things hasn't really come out. But it's definitely there. Ask my wife; she'll tell you. My kids will tell you. So look, I think it's that. I actually have some individuals that I work with and advise, and I sit on a couple boards and I work with some people, actually paid positions as business coaches individually. But I have just as many that I just sort of help for free because they don't have the funding, or that's just the way it evolved, as I do those that pay me for the time, because for me, it's just a passion to give back. And again, why am I going through all this difficult crap if not to help somebody else not go through some of it? And so I think about that all the time. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the clarity and honesty of the people in our convene group who share their business struggles, and they take advice, not just from myself, but from everybody, and everybody feeds me as well. So it's a really good, I highly recommend being part of a group like that.
Yeah, it's a healthy place to be where you literally can, feel like comfortable saying anything. And there's not that judgment of like, how are they going to think if I say this? And some of it's personal stuff that, is also connected. Like, we're interconnected. When you run a business and you have a family as well, all of that is interconnected to some level. And everybody in our group is great about trying to help get clarity and work through it. And the chances, we got about 12 people in our group, the chances that somebody experienced something similar is super high. Like, probably if we all said something we've struggled with, like 12 hands would go up. Did you ever deal with this before? Like, yeah, we all have. So the likelihood that someone can help because they made the mistake, now they course corrected it and can help us do the same. Like you said, that's where you really get, you feel on purpose and serving. And I love that. Absolutely love that. So speaking of being a wise ass, I got something for you right here. I want you to share your secret, right? So how do you actually balance your responsibilities as a business executive? You're a coach. You work on, supporting a nonprofit for individuals with disabilities, all while spending quality time with your 7 kids, your 2 grandkids, right? Your beautiful wife. I mean, how many Dave Seligsohn clones are out there? Because we all need to know. All right, what are we on the lookout for here?
Well, I've got a couple of mini-me's hidden inside the beard, which is why it's there. You can't see them, but they hang out. And so when I have work to do, they come out and they help me get things done. So
that's great.
Honestly, for me, it's simple prioritization. God to me is first. My wife is second. My kids and family are third. And then it's prioritizing the different work assignments that I have, and making sure that at least for an extended period of time, I don't take on too much of that work piece that's going to impede one of the priorities that are higher up on the scale. I honestly happen to just be blessed with the ability to work quickly. I can write effectively and with a draft, like sit down one time, it's done kind of thing, as opposed to it might be drawn out over days compared to some other people. I just know that I work quickly, but I will say none of the work things that I have impede on my ability to have time with my wife, and with our family. Those things do not. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, 6 o'clock comes, I'm done, and I'm with
Mm-hmm.
family. And so, there are rare times where something overtakes a trip, or there's a urgent need or something, but it's few and far between. And so I think everybody has a different pace and a different capacity. So understanding how much you personally can take on, and still be effective in all those things. And I use the analogy of with my wife all the time, of like a bucket of water. Everybody has a different size bucket, but when your bucket of water is filled and you go add something else to it, what happens when you pour more water in a full bucket of water? Like if your bucket's already, topping out and you pour more water in, something's
Right.
falling out. And so it's sort of self-awareness and understanding your
Mm-hmm.
capacity, and when something might be too much. And if something is going to be too much, then making a decision about where it fits and can you accept it, and then what's going to go. We have a Great Dane, who's about a year and a half old. He's pretty awesome. His name's Reggie, and he tears up toys like you wouldn't believe. And so when we get him a new toy, like our rule is we get a new one, and an old one is going in the trash because things are just torn up. It's like
Right.
murder scenes around our house, man, just stuffing everywhere. And
Yeah, but you don't
um,
keep all the
can't keep them
ripped
all.
apart things,
Yeah.
right? You gotta
So
get rid
so
of them.
that's sort of the
Purge.
same, yeah, kind of a metaphor for that. But that's important. But if you don't understand your own capacity, or you just think the more I do, the better I'm going to be, or the more I can support my family, I just got to keep getting more. You're definitely going
Mm.
to hit that wall. It's not going to help.
Yeah, and give some love now. I mean, and I appreciate that. And I know you always, what I love it when someone talks about their family, you could feel their energy. And a lot of times people are like, yeah, we're going on this trip, or it's the things that they're doing, not the people they're with. And whenever you talk about your wife, shout out to Blanche, it's always, you always take the opportunity to make sure you give her some love and appreciation, which I appreciate that as a dad, and as someone who I've been in a marriage 7 years, and I get it. Like I appreciate you that you are mindful of that. That's awesome. And now we talked about one of the things you do in all of that craziness is the ministry work that you're doing. So I want to give you the floor to give them a shout out. And what kind of stuff are you working on there?
Yeah, I've had a lot of different ministry roles, including being a youth pastor for a church in Vienna, Virginia, for a number of years. And what both my wife and I feel called to, and this is a really cool thing when you feel called to the ministry that you can do alongside your wife, is to walk with individuals who are struggling with a variety of things, and kind of promote what we call, or what's kind of referred to as soul care. But how do you take someone who is dealing with the death of a spouse and has 3 young kids? How do you deal with someone who's in and out of recovery from addiction? Deal with someone who has anxiety to the point where they're about to lose their job because they don't want to come out of their house and whatnot. And how do you walk through these life struggles, these difficult marriages with people at their pace, and show them God's love throughout? And so what we do in our church is one, we have a home group, and so we have other couples that come into our house on Sunday afternoons, and we live life together, and we help each other, and we support one another. And then we support what our church calls Steps in Recovery Ministries, two different things that are related.
Mm-hmm.
And just walking with people and mentoring people through life struggles when they're hurting, and doing so in a biblically, like a biblical counseling perspective, as opposed to more of a secular 12 step, but really putting Christ at the center of that, and just showing them love and patience and walking through those things so they don't feel like they're alone. So that's a big part of our hearts, that soul care. And it's again, helping people to be as healthy as they can while they're at some of life's, most difficult and darkest times.
Yeah, I just want everybody who's tuning in, Christian or non-Christian, just realize that when you think that your cup is full, we talked about the overflowing cup just a minute ago, but when you think about your personal, like, I'm not able to give because I don't have it all figured out, or I don't have enough free time. If you really wanted to, you could create some free time in your schedule to be involved with something. And like at my church, I volunteer on camera. I love post production. Well, we actually do live, obviously, at our church services, but I just love being part of the production team. And also, whenever I get the opportunity, I get on the drum kit and I serve on the worship team. And that's the way that I feel God, through my God-given gifts, I'm able to do it. And through your gifts as well, you're able to serve with your ministries. You don't have the time to really do it, but you could easily justify saying, you know what, I'm doing a lot of things. I could serve. I could put money in an envelope, but really, you're serving. You're on the ground floor, on the ground level, doing it. So, ton of respect for that.
Mike, I'll tell you, just an interesting little tip for you and whoever happens to listen all the way to this point in our thing here.
Hi, Mom. How you doing?
Yeah, Mom.
Thank you,
right.
Mom.
Yeah. So I read a long time ago and I've tried it and lived it out, and it works really well. Take the thing you're struggling with and think about the complete opposite thing and do that as a test. For example, if you have money issues and you're really struggling, what's the opposite of struggling with money? Give something away. If you are so busy and you can't, like you have no time and time's terrible, go force yourself to take a walk in nature, even if it's 15 minutes. Like, do the opposite of the thing that you're just overburdened with and watch what it does. And I have seen in my life that very thing produce good fruit and good results over and over and over again, thinking about doing the opposite of the thing that I'm struggling with. And it really does work.
Do you think it's the science behind it? Because let's say, oh my God, I'm so busy. I was just thinking about my schedule, busy day I have ahead after this interview, and I'd love to get rollerblading. And it's been nice out, and I haven't rollerbladed once yet this season. The spring and summer weather is finally here, and I'm going to do it today, just as a reminder from what you said. Because even though I might not have the time for it, if I do it, it kind of, what's the science behind it? Is it that it triggers your brain to realize you can add this to it? Like you could choose to do this when you thought you couldn't?
Well, first of all, if the only way that you should do that is with full elbow, knee pads, helmet, and everything.
Yeah.
And I want a picture because that's going to be really funny
Okay.
to see.
I'll
But
send it over.
when we get into routines, it literally, like there's some neuroscience behind it. It literally creates ruts, like ruts in a road, that form in our brain. And it is really hard to get your thinking and your behavior and your habits out of a rut. And so when you do the opposite of the thing that you're dealing with all the time that's created this rut, it's like a jolt, and it shakes your mind out of that rut, and it actually starts to create new pathways in your brain. And so I think that there is a neuroscience sort of or a physical thing that happens in our minds, that when we get out of the thing that we've been doing and try something new and opposite, and we might find that just that little shake, just that little jolt, helps us to see things from a different perspective.
Yeah, I love it. It's I'm thinking of my our family dog Penny. Like she has these mental blocks where if a door isn't open all the way, she won't go through it. She's kind of like, she sees it's open this far, she could totally squeak her body through there. She's a mini golden doodle. But until you open it, it's like she's got these mental barriers. And it's kind of the same thing as we could break through, but we're kind of, these ruts are preventing us from doing it. And once we go through one time, now we just trained our brain, we could do this. So the next rut we're in, we put it into a different gear and we can get our mentality out of it, right? And picture kind of like our mentality is this truck stuck in some mud and we got to get over that. We can. Speaking of being in a rut, as I mentioned, a lot of entrepreneurs tuning into this show, they may be there. They may be feeling like they're in the spot of no return, or man, they have like that last thread of hope, and they're listening to this episode right now, and we want to give them that one piece of information to keep them building and building their mentality so they can get back to it. What would you like to share?
Wow. So now every entrepreneur who's listening that's about to give up, it's all on my shoulders right now.
It's all on Dave Seligson's shoulders. Whatever he says here,
this is
the
it,
truth.
So for me, just reach out, whether it's me or Mike or someone in your life, just reach out and try not to walk through that process alone. I'm not even going to say that the right thing is to continue being an entrepreneur in your own business. That might have not be where you need to be. It might be, but it might not be. But don't do it alone, because I think that's the hardest piece of all. And so if you want some advice, if you have a specific thing that you're struggling with, if join a group like Convene, or just reach out to me and we can act like you're in Convene and you don't have to worry about joining the group, whatever. But I think that just getting another perspective, getting and acting. In a way that isn't the same as what you've been doing all for the previous months or whatever it is that got you to the place that you are. that those things can be triggers for change.
Awesome. Do you have time for one more question?
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, cool. I didn't know if you had a hard stop right there, and I want to
Don't.
be respectful of your time. So this is kind of the way I like to put the bow on it, because this conversation was amazing today, and I just want you to have an opportunity to share a little bit more about how you and your business and your family all connect. So imagine this, right? So you're the author and protagonist in your own life story, and you get to write the ending, and God willing, you continue to live a long and prosperous life. You're looking back on it, you're reflecting, and you get to define your legacy. What would that be?
It's a really hard question to throw at somebody at the last point of a meeting like this. Very deep.
Well, I warmed you up at least. I mean,
kind of. So for me, it's did I serve as a mirror or a reflection of God back to the people that I came into contact with? Does my wife see herself through God's eyes more effectively and more clearly because I was in her life? Do my kids have a model or a what's the word I'm looking for? Not so much a model, a catalyst that drives them back towards the things that are most important in their lives. And to the people that I come in contact with, do they feel blessed, and do they see God's work and God's provision in their lives as a result of the things that I like? It's not about what I achieve. It's not, and I like the one thing you said, and we've kind of alluded to it, but we haven't said it. I don't think that I ever, for the majority of my life, was consistent in all these areas. Like, I was a husband and I was one way, I was a father and I was another thing, I was an educator or a professional at work, and then I was another thing at church. And I hope that maybe you hear through all of this conversation that there's a common thread, and that's the lifting of others, that's the reflecting of God's purposes back towards others. It's not self-serving, it's outward focused. And so I think that to me is the legacy for even just one person to say, I saw myself as God sees me more clearly because I was in Dave's life in some way. That to me is, or God worked through Dave to do that for me. That to me would be the ultimate legacy to have.
Yeah. And I love it, brother, because if you stop and reflect on that, realize that you're doing it. You're doing it now. You're active in it. It's not something you pushed down the road and said, maybe in another 10 years, I could focus on that legacy story. You're actively building it and building it over time. And that story is already being told, just so you know.
And there's also this great, I mean, you haven't asked me about beard care. You haven't asked me anything around that, but I mean,
I don't want to give your secrets away.
This just doesn't come. I mean, this is, it's funny when I speak or I do different things, and I put like a LinkedIn post. If I mention the beard, not James Harden, but me, the beard, I get more likes and more comments than anything I've ever said, whether it's profound, God, not God, business, whatever. People tend to like the beard more than anything else. I think I should probably just start a beard brand and be done with it, because that's what people see.
There you go. There's your logo, just the beard. But you got to be like, excuse me, my eyes are up here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking at the beard.
That's right. That's right.
When was the last time you were fully shaved?
Oh gosh. It was probably in my early 20s. I mean, I had a tight goatee for a long time. Then I had like a close beard for a number of years. But I haven't been fully shaved since. There was one mistake. Like I made a shaving mistake one time in a beard, and I ended up having to take it all off. But short of that, it's been a really, really long time.
Wow. Did you ever see the Family Guy episode? I think Peter Griffin has a beard, and there's like a bird that lives in his beard.
No, I've never. I know it's funny, but I've never really watched a whole lot of the Family Guy. But I will. I don't know how this is going to come across for the people watching, but I'm definitely going to show you this. This was my wedding day. My first. I'm remarried now, but this was.
I don't
20
believe
years
that.
old. 21 years old. Philadelphia mullet. You can't really tell because it's tucked back in, but full on mullet. I got a 5 o'clock shadow. That was me back in the day.
Look at you, stud. That's crazy. I would have never bet, like, if in Convene, if they show like which member,
never.
It would have been. I don't think anybody would have voted for Seligsohn.
No, they're like, what the heck happened to you? Were you in a disfiguring car accident? Like, what happened?
It's crazy. Any last things you'd like to share? You have the opportunity to be on, and I appreciate you being here, man. You over-delivered, and I really appreciate your time today. Any last things you want to say to the audience before we head out?
Just the offer is sincere. Please do reach out on LinkedIn. I'd be more than happy to talk with you and see if there's anything I can share or help. That's super sincere. And I think the idea of being loving, if you take nothing away but the verb and action of how we can put other needs before our own, I think that's a huge one. And then the last thing I want to say is I'll pull this in right now, is go Birds. Oops.
Go Birds.
Go Birds, man. Eagles. Go Birds.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I was a huge Eagles fan on Super Bowl Sunday a few years back. They're playing the Patriots, and Tom Brady threw for over 500 yards. And if you just say that right there, Brady, 500 yards Super Bowl, you're like, man, they must have smacked the other team.
But they didn't think about Nick Foles.
They didn't think about Nick Foles catching the Philly special.
That's right.
What a fun Super Bowl. One of my favorites. And I also enjoyed the Giants beating the Patriots multiple times as well.
Oh, I'm sure you did. Those are your boys, right?
And yeah, and well, no, I'm a Bills fan.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right.
I'm a Bills fan. But I always go for the Giants second. We'll give a little bit of love, and they're not in our division. Like, I can never root for the Jets. I just can't find myself doing that. But maybe if the Jets played the Patriots in a playoff game, I definitely would have to root for them. But not anymore. The Bills are good now. It's focus on my team. But in the NFC, I do root for the Eagles now with my daughter being close to Philly. The only time I won't is if we come head-to-head in the Super Bowl, and I wouldn't mind that. My friend, I'll tell you, I told at the beginning of the show, remember I mentioned a buddy of mine I grew up with? So he's from Buffalo, so he's a huge Bills fan. But living in Philly, his wife is an Eagles fan. So they have a bunch of Bills and Eagles stuff all over. They actually have, the cornhole game. You play like the yard game. One of them is designed like the Bills, and one of them set up for the Eagles. So it's kind of two teams. And so if there's ever a Super Bowl where it's Bills Eagles, I don't know, that house is going to be kind of quiet. It's going to be a little awkward, but I will tell you, I'll root for the Eagles all the way up until that point, and then it's game on.
My kids and my wife had no choice.
Would you at least be happy for us if the Bills win a Super Bowl? I mean, come on, we haven't had one.
You have to understand Philly mentality. If we can't win, we want everybody else to lose. That's how we're born and raised. Okay. That's it. So I would not be happy for you. I want no one that I know to be happy if I can't be the one being happy. I'd be
what
happy.
If the Bills beat the Giants in the Super Bowl? Would you have?
I would root for the Bills over the Giants. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do that then. Let's do that. Hey, this is a lot of fun, brother. I always end every episode with be great and be grateful. It's a moment for me to reflect in gratitude, and I am grateful for you being in my life as a friend, a brother in Christ, and Convene. You bring a lot of value to the group, so we love having you. I know you mentioned that you're in there more for your opportunity to serve, and now that you say that, I'm like, okay, head nodding. Of course. We feel it. We appreciate it. Dave, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for hanging with us all the way until the end. If you haven't done it already, you can click right over here to subscribe to my channel. Make sure you turn on your notifications so you're notified of all of the updates. If you guys like shorter clips, I have mic drop moments right here. That's when my guest gives an amazing insight, and we capture that right here. Mic drop moments, and down here are the full-length episodes. All my previous episodes are right there.